Hey, welcome to the latest edition of The Good, the Bad, and the Techy, a podcast all about leading edge technology. And this week, we're here to speak about identity. Identity, such a nebulous topic. But first, let's get into a specific identity. Tyler, you're here to speak with us today. You're from Netwrix. You're the Director of Product Management. I'm literally reading that off the screen here. So why don't you tell us a bit? What brings you here? What brings you here? What's your first journey?
Yeah, good to be here, John. I've had an opportunity to speak with Howard on a previous podcast that we had. It was so good that we decided to do it again in a little bit different format. So I come as an encore, based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been doing identity and security for 22, 23 years. So, been around the space, know a lot of people in the industry, and it's something that I really enjoy. And so I always look for an opportunity to talk more about it. And so, when Gigam brought me back on or suggested we do this, I was excited to come back on with you guys and riff more on the subject. So
cool. But identity, when I've spoken about identity to people, it kind of goes into, but the problem with identity, and it goes off in kind of we're renowned on this podcast for rabbit holes, but identity is in strong danger of vanishing up down many rabbit holes.
Mm-hmm.
How would you scope it? How would you explain it to someone at the party what you do and what the area is?
Yeah. First of all, I want to make sure there's all these different identities, right? And we can get into the types of identities. We can get on the, what ones we're assuming. So specifically, we work on corporate identities, right? So, and there's a whole rabbit hole we can go to about the merging of your human, the identity that you have as a consumer and the identity that you have as an employee. And unless we want to go down that, we'll table that. But really, we work on that workforce or that employee type of identity. And so the easiest way I have when we're playing the party game, where I'm hoping that people don't just their eyes roll in their head because they're so bored, is I say, well, hey, when you go to work and you have to log in for the day, or I always use the example of, hey, when you started a job, how long did it actually take you before you could actually do real work, to use an office space phrase. And it's funny because you always get I just started a new job and I still don't have all the things that I need to do. Or you find that one person, it's like, well, they gave me a laptop and I have this login credential and I do everything in in my personal Google space, and then I log into a couple of things. And so we start talking about what that is. It's funny because you talk to more older, stodgy companies and you get down these big rabbit holes of hey, it took me 6 months until I could finally get to that one SAP system that I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we just talk around what those things are. So really, when I explain to people what it is, it goes, hey, when you go to work every day and you log in and do all of the different parts of your job, I'm behind the scenes making sure that all that works and is done securely and is monitored, and make sure that it it does the things that it needs to do and that the business is able to continue. And then I usually highlight hey, remember when you heard that attack on XYZ company, where, that one attack happened, that, because that's usually where, when you say I work in cyber, that's what they say. I say, oh yeah, when that one attack happened at Target, that would be the thing that I build to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right. And that's great because it immediately goes into a problem that everyone's had and everyone faces. And I cannot, that's almost going to become a party game of mine. It's how much are you struggling with your, it's always the laptop, isn't it? It's always I used to have a laptop and then I had to get a new laptop and now I need it's always this kind of laptop centricity that we have.
Yeah.
So what's the good, the bad, and the techie about it? I mean, what does good look like? What gets in the way? How does it? What's the map?
Yeah. On the good side, I think identity is, let's just talk about the industry, right? Identity is actually at the seat now when we talk about security. I remember when I first started and 2001, 2002, it was all antivirus. We were all doing, we're still doing endpoint stuff, but it was just, hey, so, we all remember this company called Symantec. Everyone had Symantec installed on their machine, and everyone hated that daily update. And, if you were really cool, a couple of years later, you were using Cylance, and that was a whole cool thing. And it got into the whole endpoint thing. And so when anybody ever talked about cyber, it was really, firewalls, and it was endpoint. And no one really, we knew about some attacks that were going against Active Directory. So, my background, initially, I started building tooling around Active Directory, specifically around Linux and Unix and authenticating to Active Directory. And that was a really hot new thing. I remember when we went from NT to AD and we were using Kerberos, and, I was like the life of the tech party, because I could actually coherently talk about AVNOs and all these different parts of Kerberos. And that was like being an AI today back then, is if you could actually be the Kerberos guy, you were in the hot part of technology. And now we're just all dinosaurs.
Just to add color to that, well, guess what I did? I was actually, but I'm going to do, guess what I did? I was an X500 trainer.
Oh, okay.
So kind of watching that whole thing collapse in a heap and then become LDAP, wasn't it? And then out of that came Active Directory. And so I've been an observer ever since. Never...
John, I can throw a stone and hit the Novell building from my house. So that just shows you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it used to say Micro Focus, and now I think it says Open Text. I don't even know where that tech has gone, but yeah, that's the graveyard of tech, right? So
I have a funny Novell story that'll take us down a little side journey. In my early days of tech, I got a phone call from the parent company of a customer, very small customer, parent company. I'm just obfuscating the customer, but they called and they went, "Hey, like, so and so says really good things about you. Our Novell server is down. Can you take a look?" And I went, "Cool. I've never seen Novell. This will be interesting." So get in the car, drive the hour, kind of knock on the door, and they're like, "Yeah, it's down." And I went, "Cool. Let me see what I can do." So they had the manuals, which I don't have, my screen can't capture the width necessary. It was like 6 feet of manuals. It was a full shelf, so I gather all the manuals. I don't know what I'm going to need. Put them in the car, come back a day later and go, "Okay, cool. I think I can start troubleshooting this." So I type down and hit enter, which takes the server down gracefully, power it off, put it in the back of the car, drive home. For like a week, I walk around asking people, "Hey, do you know how to take down a Novell server?" And they go, "No." And I go, "Cool, you type down." "Do you know how to bring it back up?" And they go, "No." And I go, "Crap, neither do I." And so I spent 4 days trying to get this thing to recover, getting nothing from it. And of course, I've never seen Novell, so I don't really know what correct behavior looks like. And the manuals really weren't good at, this is what the startup sequence looks like. And there was no video. We had no video at the time. This was the early 90s or 80s. Only to figure out the 5.25-inch floppy drive had died. And so it could not boot up off the floppy disk.
Okay.
Drive failed, right?
This is like old
Novell. This is old Novell.
This is like the thing gets locked in the closet and then they have to find it later because it actually
can stay Novell 2.12.
Okay. Yeah.
So way back in the day.
Yeah.
But it was still on floppy on 3, I think.
It was. You still had floppy boot on Novell 3, 3.11, 3.12, I think was when it changed.
Yeah, 3.11's kind of like that. That's like that's what gets put into the loop.
Old school. So. Yeah, that's pinnacle old school Novell, right?
Yeah.
Always worked, always ran, dedicated operating system, still IPX, but just worked right out of the box, communicated with everything, easy to set up. But yeah, so that was kind of the beginning of my Novell adventure. And then I ended up taking over that was a school district. I ended up taking over the whole school district's Novell infrastructure while I was still in high school, which was interesting.
It's a good job we never go down rabbit holes on this.
Yes. Well, I mean, I was gonna say, if you want to talk about a rabbit hole, we could just talk about how Novell had Unixware and the IP stack, and if they would have just got rid of IPX, they probably would have had a chance to compete with Microsoft, but they just stuck. They were obstinate and kept with IPX, SPX, and the rest is history. I mean, I was there when Caldera, because I worked for Caldera and SCO, when I was in the room when their CEO was looking at the source code going, okay, that's where we see it, we're going to sue. So, I mean, that's my claim. That's my claim to fame. That's my bad, I guess, to the good.
Pretty sure I've still got a SCO screwdriver in my drawer. So there's something still going from that company.
Yeah. Well, it used to be when you ordered a Big Mac, it went through Open Server, but they've since gone away from that. So that was our big claim to fame, is that all of McDonald's ran on Open Server. So
that's nice. 2 billion Big Macs served.
Yeah, on Open Server. So anyway, sorry, total.
No, but I'm interested because
why did I never see an ad that said 2 billion Big Macs open served?
I mean, missed opportunity by the market.
Holy crap! Like,
yeah, like.
Right? Wouldn't that have been good?
My life is complete. Dear, oh dear. I mean, no, but I'm interested because I used to talk to Microsoft about identity management and all that stuff back in the early 2000s, and it was all very complicated, and they were solving for it. And now here we are, and and you were talking about even before. I'm fascinated to know. My big question is a very glib question: is it, has anything changed? Are we still have we progressed anything, or are we still struggling with the same stuff? Because it feels a bit like meeting rooms. When we had meeting rooms, it was the one unsolved problem of any corporation. You could still never book a meeting room.
Yeah, I think. I mean, in some ways it's gotten better, but in some ways it's we started down this path where I think we were getting our arms around Active Directory, and then this thing called the cloud showed up, and then all of a sudden it got big again, right? I mean, I remember when we were kind of getting to the end where, I mean, again, sorry to date myself, but we were moving NIST servers to AD, and that was like a big thing, right? Because we were going to get rid of the YP NIST infrastructure. We were going to get everything centralized to Active Directory. And that was kind of the direction I think a lot of people were going, right? Like we were going to get to single sign-on. If you remember, like, the terms SP-NAGO. I mean, again, I'm kind of dating myself, but all of the, we were just building these things around Kerberos, and we were going to throw everything into Active Directory, and all of our customers were going that way. And, I don't think we were getting to nirvana, but we were down the path of getting closer to that, right? And we were building shims for LDAP so that if you were legacy, you could at least run a shim to try to get your LDAP information, so that if you had this mainframe, at least you weren't on NIST, but you were on LDAP. And we were doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden the cloud showed up, and it was like, oh crap. And now we're back to, okay, I don't have NIST because that's finally gone away. But now I've got this legacy thing called Active Directory, and now I'm shooting my identity into Azure AD or into Okta, and who's master and who's primary and who's secondary. Oh, and by the way, now we have all these developer accounts. Oh, and by the way, now we've got these non-human accounts. And how do we put governance around that? Because all these non-human accounts are getting popped. And so how are we actually doing that? And so, to your point, John, the human identity, when it sits on-prem in a corporate infrastructure, I mean, I think we've kind of beat that boss, maybe not fully, but at least we made inroads, but we couldn't go fast enough. And now we've got privileged accounts and non-human accounts, which are sometimes the same. And now we've got multiple identity sources, even more so than when we had at previously. Oh, and by the way, if you misconfigure your cloud identity source, instead of doing it on-prem, where it's just kind of like maybe there's one or two threat actors internally that could get to you, now you've got 6 billion people that if you screw something up in Azure Active Directory, they're all going to find it, right? Or you leave that one open server or whatever. And so, I think in one way we got better, but in just identities in general, it's proliferated. And so now all of these management consoles, whether it's whether you're talking about Big Iron, IGA, like, what we have at Netwrix, or some of the other ones that you might be aware of out in the industry, I think we're scrambling to keep up with that and also reach out to all these other sources of truth when we talk about secrets management, which is non-humans, when we talk about the cloud, when we talk about shadow IT and that one thing that got pulled up or that got stood up, and now we've got to go deal with that. I mean, honestly, I think it's gotten a lot worse. And then compound the fact that the threat actors have now figured out that identity is where to go make your money, right? Like,
well, isn't the problem ultimately that we created identity as a box and then threw a bunch of crap in the box, then taped the box shut, stuck it in a closet, and went, this is solved, and then went, oops, crap, we screwed up the box and it's now on fire?
well, I think even more so, Howard, I think the business said, hey, with the advent of cloud, IT was pushed out of the way, right? And so now, I mean, I
Identity
remember
problem has existed forever. Like it's not new. As soon as we had service accounts, we had an identity problem.
yes,
Right?
but what I'm saying is the
accounts that had way too many permissions, that had almost no restrictions on when they could log in, that were duplicated over and over again, that had no passwords that expired, that we just kind of closeted, and then we just kind of maintained that. And yeah, without a doubt, right, the screws that have been tightened around IT, around the shadow IT things, right, those things that are not truly centrally managed by IT, like the cloud, have just made the problem worse, but they didn't create the problem, right? The problem.
I agree. The problem's always been there. I would say the problem was being remediated, though, and then what happened was we were going down. I mean, I was a PAM consultant in the early 2010s, and even at that point, banks were starting to realize, like, it's always the financial industry, right? They're always the first ones that go, hey, we've got to fix this problem. And so they were going down the path of some of that remediation, right? Like untangling the service account problem, figuring out who the owners are, trying to build out least privilege. So it wasn't like, hey, here's the one LDAP, here's the 180 account that has all the permissions, that's domain admin, that all the applications are tied to, like actually trying to figure out how to pull that apart. And what I'm saying is that, yes, we created that problem. We were on our way to kind of start trying to remediate it. And then all these other things happened. And now it's just gotten to be even worse. So now, to your point, now we've got more problems, and more problems are being created. And we haven't yet even cleaned up the ones that we've had. In fact, we go, oh, well, let's move that application to Kubernetes and we'll fix secrets by throwing it into, we'll use HashiCorp Vault. Now all of a sudden I fix my secrets problem. Well, you haven't. It just means that now it sits in HashiCorp and it still needs governing, and you can still over provision the secret, and you can still give the secret out to too many people. It just means that now it sits in, a HashiCorp vault that if you don't patch and keep up to date, then now all your secrets are out on the internet, not just, a couple.
So I'm gonna fill in a few blanks for the lay people. So I'm just thinking, back in the corporate day, boxes, I was thinking about hub and spoke as well. It was kind of, as long as you had a central point of control, you could start bringing everything in. But then when the service accounts happened, it was stuff that was happening outside of that traditional thing, and there was no place to put that, so it was already broken. But then when the cloud happened, it was like we were all just signing up for things and using Facebook ID or OpenID or whatever willy-nilly, and then it became everyone's problem. And then the complexity of this kind of multi-dimensional, I mean, who even am I? I mean, on the internet now, I've got my personal password managers, I've got my corporate passwords. Some of that overlaps. I can't deprovision myself. What chance does the company stand to deprovision? If I just wanted to say, look, just unsubscribe me from everything, I literally couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So what chance does a company stand?
I mean, you can't unsubscribe from everything, because we're all, like, the system is motivated to keep you subscribed to as many things as possible, because we're the product, not the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the corporate economic reason to keep me inside the multi-dimensional complex system. So is your work, Tyler, is it kind of you don't care because you got a job for life now, just like fixing crap for people because it's so broken? Is there hope?
I think what we do, John, like anything in this, is what's the thing that can yield us the most return, and and also finding the riskiest things, right? Like, I don't even know if we call this eating the elephant one bite at a time, because I don't know if the problem's even elephant size, right? The problem's probably even bigger. We still have customers out there that don't have automated lifecycle management, right? Like, I still talk to customers this day that literally the way that they deprovision is they send a ticket, and there's absolutely no automation. Oh, and by the way, we hope that HR is giving us the right information, because I've even seen HR departments that don't even have a full accounting of who's they've hired and fired because they don't have proper systems there. So, I mean, I think it's trying to get at least the big rock things when we talk about at least us as a human, right? Like, and that's what we've really tried to focus on still is, what's the accounting of the human record and getting some sort of automation. A term we have is automate what you can, manage what you can't, right? So like if we try to automate, whether it's, hey, you got to provision a group. Okay, well, or a customer asks for, or a user asks for a group. Can we do something in some source of record in some automation that allows us to at least have that, and then go back through and try to clean up, right? I think a lot of this industry right now is putting in tooling that allows you to go back and at least try to clean up some of the mess that's there, because that's what's actually getting exploited. Like it's, we want to think that, and don't get me wrong, like there are cloud accounts and these non-human accounts that are getting exploited, but more often than not, it's just still all the legacy crap, right? It's, oh, somebody left domain admin. I mean, what was it yesterday? Their security researcher, I think it was Microsoft, discovered that as long as you name a group in Active Directory, it was like ESX admin or something, then you automatically get admin to your ESX servers. So that boundary's been broken, and now all of a sudden everyone can go pop ESX servers, right? And I mean, it's just like, that's the problems we have today, not the, I've got X509 certificates that I'm trying to figure out where they are. Like, that's an important problem, but like, we're dealing with people that like, oh, look, I can get ESX root access by going and having a help desk person build a group and provision a user into it. And now all of a sudden I've got access to all the infrastructure in my organization, right? Like that's still the level of problem that we're dealing with. So,
and I'll throw in the freelance, because I think something that's changed over the past 15 years is the nature of organizations to use more non-permanent staff, everything from 0 hours contracts through to whatever. And you're therefore, HR don't know if you're still on the books or not, because you're just kind of still there just in case you need you. But you've got a portfolio career yourself. It's true in the media. Everything's agency based. Everything's external based.
I mean, I was a contractor once, and I can't tell you how many times I had a it was the days, and I'm assuming they may still do this. You want to get on the network? We're going to mail you a laptop. We're going to provision you access so that you can get on our network. And then I would get done at the end of my engagement, at least on what my planner was telling me. And I would have to go and track down and say, hey guys, I got this equipment sitting here. Can you please take it? Like, I don't want it. Right. And I was trying to proactively doing it. I can't imagine how many laptops with credentials and company data is still sitting on consultants' desks that are, that never got deprovisioned fully.
I literally did this. Do you want to delete me from your email system? Because I'm still on it. I can still access all the shared drives. Do you want to take me off that right now?
Yeah. I don't want that liability, and I don't want those emails.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And I really don't want to know if there's a problem. I'm done.
So we've gone down the rabbit hole, and we can talk about all these really cool things that we need to solve. And I think as vendors, we want to spend that. But I mean, we're still we call it the crawl, walk, run, right? I have a lot of conversations around the identity maturity, and I think we're basically in diapers still, right? We still need to focus on that, because that's still the 80%, right? Like, we want to get you to fully governed, doing all the governance stuff. And there are companies out there that are doing that, and that's great. But I mean, I would say that they're still not the majority, right? Like, there's still people that are manually provisioning accounts and deprovisioning them, and just having people with all, basically full access into their directories, just able to let any help desk person add anyone to any directory without any questions, right? And that's still, was it Caesars or Win? I can't remember which one, but I mean, basically it was a help desk person getting duped and resetting a password, and then they got ransomed, and billions of dollars gone.
Yeah,
I think it was MGM, right?
Or MGM. Yeah, okay. One of them. I can't remember.
The best lesson from MGM was keep your disaster recovery plans printed. Because if they get encrypted along with the rest of the ransomware, you're going to have a real bad time in recovery.
you can't run the book. Oh, where's the book? Oh, the book's encrypted.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, that's like the BitLocker, isn't it? Again, it's
Yeah.
so,
So what is the kind of like, okay, let's say you're at crawl, you're just now getting your arms wrapped around it. What are the 3 things you think customers should do to kind of, move the ball forward and not try to eat the elephant all at once?
yeah, on the crawl stage, what we always talk about is identification, right? So get in there, figure out what you've got. So whether it's just figure out the infrastructure, like what do you even have for identity infrastructure, or maybe you've got that. So at least take an accounting of, what accounts do you have? What's the state they're in, right? Like there's plenty of tools. We have them obviously as a vendor that can tell you, oh, someone hasn't logged into this account for 6 months. That's a probably good indication that you probably should deprovision or at least turn it off and see what happens, right? So, just kind of like steady state that and really understand that. The next phase, so that's a pretty big phase, and maybe we could, I've given you a couple of examples. The second one is to put some level of detection in, right? Like management's pretty expensive, right? Like trying to get the connectors and trying to build the run books and the workflows and understand ownership and all that. That's a business problem, right? And business problems are expensive. That's why when we talk about identity management, it's a long process because you need to have that buy-in from management, especially if you're doing things like governance, because it's being driven by a lot of places. So really, we've set that off to the side and say that's really important. But until you can get that done, that's why IT and identity threat detection response is so hot, because you can get going quicker. And we have ITDR tools, but putting some sort of detection, especially out of the box where you're not having to build custom rules, put some sort of detection so that when the bell gets rung or something bumps at night, you actually know that that's going on, right? Mm-hmm. We want to do management, and management is bringing the posture of the identity down and trying to fix that problem. But it's going to take a while to get there. So at least put sensors in there or do something that tells you that when something bumps in the night, you can at least say, oh, that's weird. Like all of a sudden there's this, I'm getting password sprayed on this account. I should probably do something. Oh, it's a deprovisioned account. It's a account that hasn't been logged in. I should probably deprovision it. So take the knowledge that you get from kind of the discovery and then, institute these identity threat detection and response tools, which, out of the box can go pretty quick. And that's, I think, I won't give you 3, Howard, because we're almost at time, but I'll give you 2. And those are the 2 big ones: is start to understand and use the discovery use a discovery mechanism. And there's tons of PowerShell scripts out there. If you're a heavy identity or a Active Directory shop, just go on GitHub and you'll find stuff that can do this. So if you don't want to spend a grundle of money, then just go out and try to find some stuff that some of these blue teamers or red teamers, both of them have built scripts around this
for sure,
and do that. And then I would say that, if you're a Microsoft shop, they've got ITDR tools. Defender for Identity is out there. You can use that. If need something more third party or you're not fully invested in the Microsoft stack, we've got stuff at Netwrix. There's a bunch of others. Get some sort of identity detection in there so that at least you can do that. And if you do those 2 things, at least you're down a path. And then you can start thinking about all the management stuff that we've been doing.
Well, that is the third thing, though, isn't it? It's start setting priorities, start locking down the high risk stuff. And,
understand, plan, respond accordingly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So understand where you're at, understand what it is you can actually take on, create a plan to do so, and then take the action, right? So if you're doing nothing today, then a really good start is how about we try to quantify the risk that we have available to us, right? And then tool to solve for that risk, right? In some cases, especially if you're small, PowerShell scripts probably get you there today. They're better than nothing. Mm-hmm. That being said, they're pretty close to nothing.
Correct. Yeah,
PowerShell is a point in time.
Someone made it in about 4 hours. We've got threat engineers that have made all the stuff that we've done. And it's funny, again, shameless plug, but that's kind of to your point, Howard. I like to do when I do a conference, I always say, okay, what are you going to do when you get home? What are you going to do the week after? What are you going to do 30 or 90 days from now? Right. And really the big thing is always getting once you do all of this, presenting this, getting a roadmap, getting a plan, or what we call a roadmap, and then going and getting that executive sponsorship, right? And if the business wants to write that off and say, we accept the risk, at least they've made that determination.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I don't think businesses still to this day understand the risk. I mean, I sat back for many years thinking this is all going to get really, I wouldn't say bad, but it's going to get the threats that we see now that are exploiting these identity vulnerabilities. I think a lot of us saw that. And I always tell people we haven't even gotten to the worst part of it. I mean, so it's up to us as identity or security professionals to say, hey, this is what the plan is to try to fix all of this. This is what I need for staff, money, time, whatever it might be that you need. And then, let the business decide whether they want to make that investment or not.
Cool. On that note, I think that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, Tyler. It's been, I wanted to know why. It's not that we haven't advanced, and you threw in the complexity element, and it's about applying old principles in new ways, I think, and you gave really good insight into that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Howard. It's been a pleasure.
It's awesome as always. As always, I love talking to you, Tyler.
Yep, same. Thanks, guys.
So who wants to wrap up? You going to wrap up? Shall I wrap up?
So this has been another. Yeah, it's supposed to be me. See, this is what happens when you weren't here last week. I totally lost the thread on how this flow is supposed to go. So this has been another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Techie. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. If you'd like to be on, or you'd like to see a specific guest or a topic, please let us know. Thank you, and we'll see you